So in 2017, you featured on Shark Tank, which is huge. And at that time, your projection was that you would hit $2.8 million in revenue within the first 3 years, with a projection of about 49% in profit. Now, before you answer that and share if you actually achieved that, I would love just to hear a little bit more about BeFit Food and how you actually came up with the idea and your story.
Yeah, well, thank you, Melissa. And I think my story goes back to when I was a very young age. I actually had an illness that was undiagnosed until I was 20, and it sent me in and out of hospital for 18 years. They stopped looking for what was wrong with me by the time of 8. So once they couldn't find anything, I would then just have to be sent away to my grandma's house for a week or two at a time in excruciating pain, rolling around on the ground, throwing up, not eating, not drinking until I could take a breath without crying. And basically, I knew that something was wrong. My parents knew that something was wrong, but the medical community was saying, no, we can't find anything. So once I was old enough to have my own license and I was going to university, I would find myself in sticky situations where I could be on, a busy freeway and have to pull over because I'd be in so much pain. And it's that decision, do I call an ambulance or do I just try and get home, or what do I do? And in the end, I was working 7 casual jobs at the time. I'd finished at uni, gone to a bar, worked till 3, 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, driven all the way back to my parents' house on the Mornington Peninsula, and gone for these scans. And then I'd fallen asleep till 3 p.m. the next day. And I woke up to 7 answering machine messages on my parents' machine, because this is sort of before mobile phones were really a thing. And no one else was home. And I remember listening to the first message saying, you need to come in straight away. We found something, it's urgent. And they kept leaving these messages. And I thought, first to myself, thank God I'm not crazy and there's actually something wrong with me. And I hope it's bad enough that, it just gives me confidence in the medical system again, that I'm not crazy and that they can work through this process. And so sure enough, I got in there and they said, we need to do emergency surgery. We think you've got a tumor. It could be life-threatening. There's a 90% chance that you'll survive. And being a naive 19-year-old, I turned around and said, actually, I'm busy. I've got a inside sport swimsuit competition on the weekend, and I'm a finalist. And the following weekend was my 20th birthday, and I'd already booked my party in an Italian restaurant and a band and all my friends. So you'll have to wait 2 weeks. And he's like, you are kidding me. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, I've lived with this for 18 years. No one believed me. And finally, you found something. So it's on my terms now. And yes, I go in, and the night of my birthday party, I actually ended up in hospital, violently ill. Had the next day, and this is a day that I'll never forget. Feeling mortal for the first time, thinking, what if I don't wake up after the surgery on Monday? And I went for a run. I wasn't much of a runner back at the when I was 19, and I just decided to keep running. And I ran for about 13 kilometers in the dark along the beach, stumbling over my own feet. I don't know what I was running to or from, but I had this feeling of being mortal, and what if there isn't another day? And got picked up, and that next morning straight in for surgery, and I was out of it for about 5 days. And I woke up on the third, fourth day a bit groggy and sort of assessing, okay, well, I'm here, I'm alive, I'm in an electric bed, I can't sit myself up, I've got all these tubes connected to me, what's going on? On the 5th day was my actual 20th birthday, and I flicked on the news, and it was about 8 o'clock at night, and I could hear the commotion in the hospital, and I thought, what's going on? And it was the Bali bombings had just happened. And the government was, that feeling of under threat. Are they coming to Australia? What's this real threat? And I remember that being the lowest point of my life, thinking I'm literally in a remote control bed, sitting me up and down. I'm tied to tubes. I can't get out. I've got no one in this world to support me. And I guess my passion for nutrition started in this journey because I was always told that there was something wrong with what I was eating that was causing me to get these tummy aches, and that if I just changed what I was eating, it would go away. And so I constantly changed what I was eating. I tried, going off lactose, going off gluten, doing all these things, dairy, whatever it might be, and nothing really stopped it or made a huge difference. So having to do that as a child and learn about that, because my parents didn't really understand it. They both work full time. Mum worked 6 days a week, dad worked 5 days a week. They helped me with what they could, but it became my problem. So learning about nutrition and food as medicine, food that makes you well, became my passion, my mission. And I studied to be a dietitian, exercise physiologist, diabetes educator, and I did all of those courses because the more that I learnt, the more questions I had, and those questions, nobody could answer them for me. So I thought, well, I need to find these answers. And for me, it was very much about, well, if food can fix the majority of chronic health conditions and many other medical conditions, then why are we putting people on medication? If the medication has long-term side effects, never cures the condition, generally only masks the symptoms, I just didn't understand, particularly with diabetes and type 2 diabetes, the fact that it's caused by food, it can be fixed by food, yet people ignore the food or the exercise advice and just take the medication. And yeah, so that was my passion. I started my first business when I was 23. I ended up having 23 staff actually after the first couple of years. So I had a gym and a health consultancy, and took on lots of hospital contracts, so 3 private hospitals, 11 medical centres, and this business, I guess, was something that grew through passion because the people that worked with us truly believed that we could make a difference in people's lives. And the community that surrounded us was seeing the results and referring other people. I then had my first child, and she was about 6 months old. And I remember breastfeeding one night and sitting in the dark, got my phone, doing my emails, trying to sort out the wages and whatever else. And I looked down and I was like, oh my God, I've had a baby. And it had not crossed my mind that I'd had a baby, because literally the whole pregnancy I worked. I actually worked after my waters broke. I went to work for 5 hours to finish all the work. And my husband was timing my contractions. He's like, we need to go. They're like 2 minutes apart. And I packed up the computer, put on an out of office, and I just never took a break. I worked in the hospital ward because my desk was in the room next to the maternity room that I was in. So I just never took a break. And that was the first moment that I went, something needs to change. So I sold part of my business, the gym side of the business, kept the dietitian consultancy. And then a year later, after I'd had a little bit of breathing space, I fell pregnant again and started my second business, which was BeFit Food. And BeFit Food was once again a love job, because I'd seen over 10,000 patients at this time, and I'd recognized that everyone was willing to change, and the things that got in the way of them being able to achieve their goals and live a healthier, happier life was that they were time poor, that there was no convenient, healthy options, and they were willing to do whatever it took. But sometimes life would get in the way, family priorities, kids' sport priorities, work priorities, and they would fail at sticking to the program or the diet. So after you've heard thousands of people say to you, you know what, I'd be so successful if you just came to my house and cooked for me and portion controlled my meals, I thought, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the food, deliver it to their door, tell them to clear out all the food in the house except the bottom drawer of the fridge, where you've got all your salad and low carb veggies and things like that. All they needed to do was eat the food 3 times a day in their snacks, and they would always achieve their goals. And that's how BeFit Food started.
It's really interesting learning about how a food business comes onto the market, because I can imagine there's a lot of research and development. So talk to me a little bit about that, because I read that you personally tested a lot of the recipes, and also, I mean, where were you sourcing all the ingredients from? I mean, were you cooking at home? I mean, so share a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so these were all my recipes that I was giving to my patients. And once I saw their success in clinic when they were cooking, I knew it worked. So then it was just a case of cooking it myself. And in a very short period of time, if we wanted to commercialize this, I realized we needed all the HACCP accreditations and those sorts of things. So I got that for my home kitchen. But then I realized I had a 1-year-old and 3-year-old at home as well, and that was probably never going to work, and another business that I was trying to run. So I hired a commercial kitchen. I hired my first 5 staff, and we started cooking. And we ended up actually growing out of all the shared spaces we had in a short period of time. So I bought a fish and chip shop and converted it into a commercial kitchen. And my best friend's husband actually negotiated and got this business down to $1. So we bought this fish and chip shop for $1, and it had, you know, the commercial fridges and freezers and cool rooms. None of it worked, we later found out. So we had to completely revamp it all. But that's how we really got started. And it was through that journey that we realized how successful this could be if we could scale it. So we started cooking in this little kitchen in Somerville, and we blacked out all the windows because we wanted to just do it online only so that we could sort of do it after hours and work our full-time jobs during the day. And what we ended up happening was all the people in the street could smell the food. So every 10 minutes, someone was knocking on the door and saying to the chefs, "We just want to buy some food." And the chefs called me and they said, "If you do not come and stand at this door, we're not going to get anything cooked, and we're going to leave." And so one day I drove down and I stood at the door, and sure enough, people were knocking and trying to buy food every 10 minutes. So I started selling the food. And, you know, at first we didn't have a cash register. We didn't have an EPOS machine. We didn't have anything to be able to sell the food other than home delivery. So we started this little store that was the size of a closet, and then expanded over time and got our second store. And that's when I recognized that I guess growth sucks cash, and you need to be injecting money into the business to actually grow it. So it's not as if the money comes out and creates profit so that you can grow. Generally speaking, you need to have taken that next step before you get that growth. And that's what I started to learn. So we then put, over this first couple of years, hundreds of thousands of dollars into this business, and it was chewing up money and not spitting much out the other end. So I decided that we needed a loan. So the banks ideally didn't want to, you know, support a business that wasn't generating profit. So I decided to go to Shark Tank.
And just on that point as well, because you mentioned online. So what was the consumer journey with ordering food from you? So was it done on your website and then you would deliver the food?
Yes. Yep. Just 100% on the website. And this website we'd created was a single sort of page WordPress site that was very, very basic. And then in the back end, we literally just had to manually enter the orders, and we'd hired a courier and we'd send the orders to the courier every day. He'd come pick it up and drop it off.
Yeah. I read that you mentioned that you've learnt to hire slow as well in your business. So how many people are at BeFit Food now?
Well, with Shark Tank, so once that happened, our team grew from 5 to 63 people in 4 weeks.
Wow, huge.
And
it's massive.
Yeah, that was literally because we had 1,500% growth. So we went from doing around 30 orders a week to thousands of orders. So it really scaled well beyond what we ever could have imagined. And you can't really plan for that, and you don't know what resources that takes unless you've done the planning first. But we didn't get a chance for the planning. So that 5 minutes on national TV of saying, "This is Australia's first doctor and dietitian designed, scientifically formulated, home delivered meals company that delivers up to 5 kilos weight loss in 2 weeks," got 60,000 people out of the 685,000 viewers watching that night to our website trying to place orders. And our website crashed every 4 minutes for about 2 weeks or so. And then it crashed every other day for months on end. So we really needed to break the business to restart the business. We needed a whole new scale up the team, warehousing, new logistics. So we went from doing Victoria only to national delivery across Australia. We needed all new machinery and manufacturing. We needed new websites, and we actually needed the systems and processes in place for managing orders. So the inventory management systems, the CRMs, the marketing. We'd never done any marketing before because we didn't need to. It was all word of mouth. But that next phase of growth really, really is well beyond. If you haven't done it, it's very hard to imagine what it looks like. And we were thrown in the deep end because we didn't get a chance to plan for it. Our life changed overnight.
I just want to hop back a little bit to Shark Tank. So not many businesses are successful on Shark Tank, and I know your business was. What did you do to prepare for the show? Like, just talk to me a little bit about like the build up, because it's massive that you even got on there. So even about the application process.
Yeah, so I actually applied the year before I was successful, and I got through to the interview process, but my business partner at the time just said, there's no way you can do this. It'll be humiliating. It's career suicide. It looks, desperate, all the things. And I knew in my heart of hearts that without going on Shark Tank or without getting financial investment behind the business, we were only going to be able to help a small handful of people, but we were changing their lives so significantly that I wanted to be able to help more people. And it was just not going to be possible self-funding. And so anyway, I pulled out the application, and then a year later, and as I mentioned, we were hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt at this point, but personal debt. I just knew that I couldn't keep putting my family at risk like that. And I really believed in it, but I knew for us to scale, we needed to take it to new heights and get funding. So I decided to go against my business partner's sort of wish at that stage and apply for Shark Tank again, because I couldn't keep funding the business. I didn't want to close it down, and I didn't want to lose my share in the business because it had now become my full-time job. I'd actually had to put a general manager in my other company so that I could focus on growing this, because I knew what it could potentially be. So I studied every episode ever made for 3 months. I wrote down every question ever asked, and I made sure that I knew the answer for my business just in case we were successful. So we literally flew into Sydney the night before. My business partner had said, cannot go on the television show, it'll be horrible for my reputation, etc., etc.
So he was still against it right up until,
yes,
oh, wow.
yes,
Okay.
yeah, so he was definitely not going on the show, and he was certainly advised not to. And I can understand that as well. As a doctor, as a surgeon, people judge you from the outside. Why would you be doing it? This and that. So I completely understand it. But I was so passionate about this business that I needed it to succeed at all costs, because I knew the impact it was having on people's lives. So I just went, I'm going to take this risk. I'm going to back myself, and I'm going to go for it. So that next morning you wake up and, you bust out to Fox Studios and hair and makeup. And I asked questions to the people doing my makeup. I said, so what happens next? I know we do a 1-minute pitch, but what happens next? And everyone said, oh, don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. So I got no information. And sure enough, you get called up and they said, okay, so we're just going to get you to walk down the red carpet. And, after 10 seconds, the big doors will open and we need you to stand out on the mat, wait there for a minute while we set up the cameras, and then you give your 1-minute pitch. And I'm like, that's it. And they're like, yep, that's it. And I said, but what if the big doors don't open? And they said, oh, the doors always open. They're electric doors. So sure enough, we start filming. The cameraman's in front of me walking backwards, and he falls through the doors because the doors don't open. And I was like, oh no, this is sign. And anyway, so we roll again, and out I go, and I wait there for a minute. And I now understand what that minute is for. It's so that they can capture your emotion. The 5 judges are sitting there looking you up and down, taking notes, and it's that build up that they need for television and good entertainment. And I guess in my head, all I could think about was this 1-minute pitch. Just get it out, and that's it. That's all you need to do. Well, that wasn't quite true. 2 hours and 45 minutes later, I was still standing on the same spot, answering questions, hadn't had a break, couldn't ask a friend, couldn't look up a note, couldn't move from the spot, being interrogated by the 5 sharks. But fortunately, at this stage, I'd been able to answer all of their questions. I had 2 sharks make offers, and then it was just a case of, well, who are we going to go with? And I really needed my business partner then, because I'm like, we're in this together. So I went out and I said, I think we've got a deal, but I need proof of life. You need to come out and show them that you're real, because what if they don't even believe me? And he's like, all right, I'll come out. And he came out, and sure enough, as he sort of feared, they did eat him alive, because that's, you know, good television. That's what the media wants. And yeah, we got torn between Steve Baxter and Janine Allis, but in the end, I just made the call, and it was on television, so we committed to it. And I'd always gone on the show seeking a female mentor, because there was another female, Naomi Simpson from Red Balloon as well, but she hadn't raised an offer. But Janine Allis with Boost Juice in food, as a female, as a mother of 4 as well, ticked all the boxes for what I thought would help me with BeFit Food. And so the next thing was, we walk out, we get the photos, and I thought, how am I going to carry home this big check? We've just signed a check. This is going to be great. And anyway, we leave, and I go, oh, when do I get the check? And they said, oh, well, what check? And I said, well, didn't we just do a deal? Oh, no. They'll be in contact with you next year, in a few months' time. You know, you go through due diligence now, and look, someone will be in contact. And I was like, when? And anyway, so I kept calling, kept phoning up, and booked this due diligence meeting. But unfortunately, because, you know, Janine takes holidays, those sorts of things, it wasn't for literally a couple of months. So we were left hanging, thinking that we'd got this investment. There was no investment. I turn up to the due diligence meeting, and they've already decided they're not investing. And I'm like, based on what? And they said, oh, we went through all your, you know, financial history and this and that, and it doesn't stack up, and we're not going to invest. I'm like, the investment will allow us to grow and achieve and do these things. So anyway, the TV show hadn't gone to air. And so I just decided not to take no for an answer. So I kept turning up at her office every single month and asking about this investment, telling her all of the good things we'd been doing, how the business was progressing. And it took 9 or 10 months before the television show went to air.
Oh, wow.
And I'd been preparing from literally week 1 that this could go to air at any stage, and we didn't know when it was going to air. We needed to have food ready. We need to have a team ready. We needed to have couriers and warehouses and stock and storage. And sure enough, when it does go to air, and it's 9 months later, I guess we just didn't know what could possibly happen then, because we'd waited so long, and there was no investment either. So we thought, will it not go to air because we didn't get the money? It goes to air. We get 100 people on the website, 1,000, 10,000, 60,000 people on the website, all trying to order at once. The most visitors we'd ever had to the website in one particular time was about 30 prior to this. So we were blown away. And I turned around and said to our production manager at the time, oh, I'm so glad we made the 800B rapid boxes. I think we'll actually sell them. So these are our, 21 meal packs for a week of food. And he turned around to me and he said, oh, Kate, I didn't make all 800. And I go, what do you mean? Like, we've been preparing for this for months. He goes, oh, look, I thought you were full of shit, and I only made 200. And I'm like, you are kidding me. And I go, okay, well, obviously orders are going through. We can't see the back of the website because the website kept crashing as the orders were coming through. But I'm assuming it's going to be more than 200. How long is it going to take, do you think, to catch up and get to this 800? And he said, oh, weeks, months. And I'm like, what do you mean? We need another solution. Like we need to fix this. And that's when I started madly hiring people. And sure enough, the next morning when I turned up to work, there was a lot of traffic, and I thought, this is odd for Mornington. Why is there so much traffic? And then I realized they were all queuing up to get into BeFit Food. Because we only delivered in Victoria, anyone who'd bought from any other state in Australia had driven to Victoria to come and
Wow.
collect their food. So by
Wow.
9:05, there was not a single meal left in the building. We'd actually done over 2,500 orders at this point,
Wow.
and we were used to doing about 30 orders prior to that per week, not per day. And yeah, it was a big learning curve because we had to then tell everyone, look, you're going to have a refund, take your money back. It's going to be weeks, maybe months before we can get food to you. And
Yeah.
90% of the customers said, no, we're happy to wait. We're happy to
Mm.
wait. We just want this food. We're looking for this solution. This is what we've been
Mm.
looking for. And that to me was so satisfying that we'd actually created something to solve a
Mm.
problem that resonated with other Australians. And I knew for my personal clients it worked and it really
Mm.
helped them, but I didn't realize how many other people out there felt helpless and felt that they needed this kickstart. They needed something that was truly healthy to, get them on that journey because they just couldn't do it on their own.
Mm. So with the customers, I mean, obviously you're at capacity, but with the customers that decided to wait, did you just keep them updated when the food would be available and ramp up your production?
Absolutely. So every single moment of my day was spent trying to find new staff, new
Yeah.
production facilities, additional kitchens, additional suppliers, new packaging, new couriers, new warehousing, new storage, new pick and pack teams, software processes,
Wow.
then putting HR systems into place because we'd never really had to think about all those things with a small team of 5. And so it was really a case then of creating a completely different business model. It was no longer just one storefront and one kitchen. We went to having multiple kitchens at
Mm.
one stage that we were hiring to then moving to a very large facility that enabled us to make thousands of meals at a time.
Mm. Yeah. So on Shark Tank, you were successful, and Janine Allis mentioned that she would come on board. So did you end up getting the investment, and if so, what influence did she have on your business?
So a month after Shark Tank went to air, we had our follow-up meeting with Janine, and she decided she was happy to invest at that point.
Yeah.
And
How did you feel
yeah,
about that as well? Because it was such a long period from when you actually filmed, right? And then you were unsure if it was going to transpire. So was it like a relief, or I mean mixed emotions?
I think I'm an eternal optimist, as you are, Melissa. We talked about this earlier. And as much as other people were telling me it's not right, don't do it, just because the business is scaled now, I knew I'd actually gone on the show to get a mentor, to get help, to get
Mm.
advice. And I really wanted someone in my corner that would help me grow the business, that the
Mm.
money we needed just to survive,
Mm.
the support and the mentoring would have, that was really what I was on there for to get from the show. And so Janine to me still was the best person that I could dream of to come on board as a mentor and someone to support me. So so I was happy with that. We changed the deal, and obviously the business had grown at this point, so it was far more beneficial deal for us to do that outside of Shark Tank.
Mm.
And then a month or so later, her husband invested in the business as well.
Mm.
And so it was a really good start for us and a way to really get things off the ground and to systemize the business. And that process took about 6 months to really break everything and
Wow.
rebuild it. So,
Wow. It's so important just getting the processes right and building the right foundation as well so that you can start to scale.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it was all worth it in the end.
Yeah.
But it was an extremely hard period of my life. And I always say it's something I wouldn't have even wished on my worst enemy. It
Wow.
was horrifically difficult because it was 24/7. You were dealing with thousands of people at a time.
Yeah.
You weren't able to keep up with demand. You were
Mm.
constantly disappointing people. However, what we did find is those people who truly wanted the program were willing to wait and they were patient, and the
Mm.
results people were getting well outweighed the negativity. So we were getting that positive, the compliments on the side when it was changing people's lives. And all these lovely things were happening. People
Mm.
were getting pregnant because, it helps with
Wow.
fertility. People were able to get their orthopedic surgery for their new
Mm.
hip or their new knee because they'd been told by the surgeon they couldn't have weight unless they have surgery unless they'd lost weight.
Mm.
One of the most beautiful stories was a father saying that his son finally said to him, "Dad, I'm so glad I can actually hug you now." And the dad said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, it's the first time I've ever been able to get my arms around you and make it feel
Wow.
like a real hug." And, you hear these sorts of stories, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. Like, we really knew we were making a big difference in people's
Yeah.
lives. And that's what kept us going, because if we pulled out and given up because we were failing and we were failing fast, then we wouldn't have been able to help these people that truly needed the health and the life-changing experiences. So we knew it was just worth waiting it out, because in
Yeah.
the end, I do believe if you do things well,
Mm.
eventually the money follows.
Mm.
You just need to take the hard road and, you know, don't compromise your values, don't compromise the quality of the product, the service, and do that at all costs. And eventually it will come back, because people talk and people
Yeah.
appreciate that and they can see through the crap. So we just stood to our values.
Yeah. Just on the point about people talking and a little bit more about your marketing. So I can see that Shark Tank exploded your business, right, overnight, which is huge. But beyond that, what's worked really well from a marketing point of view?
Oh, the best thing for us is the organic word of mouth and
Mm.
organic PR. And by that, I mean, as a health expert in the
Yeah.
industry, being asked to go and speak at big events, conferences, corporate talks, groups, whatever it might be, being able to tell our story, use my expertise, and actually help people gives
Mm.
us the best exposure, because it's that first-hand authentic exposure, and
Mm.
it allows people to see the difference between us and perhaps our competitors that are food that's scaled up to make money, and we
Mm.
are results driven. And then the food is the tool to help people achieve those results. The food is
Mm.
not the money making part of the
Mm.
business. It's the tool that guarantees that people will get through and get the results that they need. So I think in terms of social media, Google Ads, in the early days, we did no marketing. After
Mm.
Shark Tank, we then
Mm.
hired a marketing team and started
Mm.
doing our digital ads and social media. And that was working quite well. But then when Facebook changed all the rules and you couldn't
Mm.
target weight loss, you couldn't target fitness, you couldn't target health or diabetes or any of those things, it became a really difficult space for us to be in. And I'd never wanted to go down the path of influencers, purely because I wanted genuine customers to talk about the food. So
Mm.
our genuine customers, I would take on morning TV and say, just tell people, what happened when you
It's
tried
so
Beat Fit
so good
Food?
for social proof, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And that was people's real life stories, whereas it just felt inauthentic to pay
Yeah.
people to eat the food to make up stuff, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
we ended up having a handful of people becoming influencers because they were just everyday people eating the
Yeah.
food, tracking their journey, and then someone would see it. And I remember one girl doing this. And the post went bananas because she picked up 2 bags of potatoes and said, "This is what I lost in 4 weeks." And you've got
Wow.
these huge, big bags
Huge.
of lumpy potatoes. And she's like, "Look at me. This is what I lost in 2 weeks." And she became an influencer and an ambassador for us,
Yeah.
not because that's what was set out to happen, but because that was real and authentic too. So,
Mm.
um, I guess influencers as such, paying agencies, that sort of stuff
Mm.
has never really worked for us, because I think
Mm.
people can see through it.
Mm.
But being able to tell the story, educate people, get people to share their authentic experiences certainly works.
Mm. It's really interesting, right? Because not many businesses are successful on Shark Tank, and you've had an incredible journey. Also, with having your previous business before, and then being a mum and scaling now this business. What are some of what are some of the biggest challenges, and what have you learned? If you could go back and change something, is there anything that you would have done differently?
I think I was much better to be naive and be in the dark
Yeah.
about everything, because there were so many moments when it was just so difficult, and other people told me, this is never going to work. You're never going to get through this. You just need to give up. That
Who were they? Were they sort of close friends or family? And sort of, how did you manage that?
Oh, it was everyone. That the
Yeah.
worst though was actually at one point on social media. I'm not really into social media. I mean, occasionally I'll post and bits and pieces, but I don't sit there and scroll.
Yeah.
And this particular time, a group had started posting about me and about my business and this and that. And it was really negative, and I hadn't
Mm.
seen it. And my big team at 63 people, the majority of them had seen it this particular morning, and everyone was hiding their phones. I'm like, what's going on? Anyway, finally someone screenshots it and goes, I think you need to see this. And it was heart-wrenching. It was so
Yeah.
awful and nasty that it actually, for the first time in my life, other than stopping working when I was breastfeeding that very first night when I sold half my first business, that got me to take a break for about 4 hours. And I was just in tears. I could not believe how nasty people could be behind a keyboard, and the things that they would say that were so untrue as well.
Mm.
And I thought, if only this person on the other end that was saying these things actually knew that I was a mum as well and a human
Yeah.
with feelings, I don't think they would do it. So I decided I was going to contact her. And I called her, and I said to her, I don't believe this is true. Why would you say this? She burst out crying. She said, I am so sorry. I didn't mean it. I think I was just being a keyboard warrior. I'd love to come and meet you one day. And I've got 2 kids as well. And I'd love for your kids to meet my kids and this and that. And I accepted her apology, but I said, you just need to be mindful that these
Yeah.
are real people's lives and human
Yeah.
beings just doing their best. And I think that learning for me was that you can only do your best,
Yeah.
and you can't, nobody has a mirror ball to see in the future and what's going to happen. But on the flip side of that, if you don't back yourself, nobody else will. So you need to back yourself and push forward. And when you said, the people that didn't believe you could do it, it was the majority of people.
Yeah.
And even the people that love and care about you, they worry about you as well.
Mm.
So there would be that fear, that they were genuinely worried. This isn't good for your health. You can't do this. It's too high a risk. And
Mm.
I think I just had to go against all odds, because deep down I knew that we were changing lives, and those
Mm.
people were telling other people, and that eventually would get out and that would help. And it did. It was the word of mouth that really transformed the business over time.
Mm. I'm really curious. What are 3 foods that you would suggest someone to cut out straight away from their diet?
The first one is definitely sugar. I
Mm.
really, really dislike sugar. I think that the industry itself was created as a money-making industry. It does so much damage, and it has no nutritional value other than energy and calories. And I've got this
Mm.
crazy belief that calories and energy isn't what human beings are really trying to extract out of food. In general, I just don't like your fried foods. I just
Yeah.
think, peel off the batter and eat what's in the middle, but don't eat the outside. There's just no value in that as well. It's white flour that's then been deep fried, that also again has had all the nutrients required, and that poor piece of fish that got trapped in the middle, or even the potato that's in a chip isn't that bad, but it's the way the chip is processed that kills the potato. So yeah, the fried stuff, the batters, those sorts of things. And then the third one would really be the artificial synthetic foods. So nothing against like protein bars and protein shakes. However, a lot of people, and I certainly see this with eating disorders as
Mm.
well, go on to these foods thinking that they can replace real whole food because they've got protein in them. And A protein bar or a protein shake is great for putting protein to build muscle into the body, but you can't build muscle just from pouring protein in. You need all the vitamins and minerals and all the energy systems to work to create a human being. It's not just one simple macronutrient. So particularly when you're looking at these bars and shakes that are all synthetic, when they've got, 20, 30 ingredients that are all 10 plus letters long, and you just don't know what any of them are, and all these artificial sweeteners, that stuff really scares me. So if you can't read the foods on the label and you don't know what they are, don't eat it.
So I just wanted to hop back to the question I asked at the start. So when you were on Shark Tank,
Yes,
you said that you project that BeFit Food will hit $2.8 million in revenue within the next 3 years. What happened there?
we absolutely smashed all of
Wow,
our
well
financial
done.
goals. So that was really unexpected. And I guess in terms of gross profit margins, which unless somebody really understands P&Ls and balance sheets, but the gross profit margin is when you take out your cost of goods, your food, your packaging, your home delivery, achieving those sorts of margins. We were able to hit those gross profit margins for a while, but as everyone would understand, over the last few years, there's been so many price increases, particularly on whole food. So your plant-based foods have gone through the roof, and I'm sure everyone notices when they go food shopping now, the cost of meat, the cost of lean proteins like chicken and fish has gone through the roof, and the cost of logistics. Actually shipping food across Australia is extremely expensive. So we've certainly found the crunch on the margins, but at the end of the day, everybody has to adjust, and we're just adjusting, and we'll find our new normal at some point. There's a lot of obviously financial uncertainty in the economy at the moment, but there is a place for health investment. And I think that's where we know that BeFit Food will get through this, because health is the true wealth. And I think without your health, having wealth means nothing, because you can't buy your health back. And we see this story over and over again when people end up with amputations. So I had 3 people that I knew that had amputations in 1 year. And sadly, 2 of them have actually lost their lives since then. And the one that has survived has completely changed his outlook on life. And health is everything now. So the investment in health is worth more than anything else, because you can't buy it back once it's taken from you. And as much as, healthy food might be getting more expensive, the cost of being healthy is worth it. It just is. So.
Do you think BeFit Food would be where it is today if you hadn't appeared on Shark Tank?
It's a great question. I think it would have been a lot slower. I think that few minutes on national television really opened up our eyes to the size of the market, because I think we really thought the market was quite small. But then you go on national television and you've got 10% of viewers literally adding to cart. It was just so much bigger than we thought. We thought we were just targeting perhaps medical conditions, but then we realized the everyday consumer was also looking for a healthy, convenient option, or they were looking to drop a few kilos before they were going to Bali, or before they were having an operation, or before their wedding, or to help with fertility. So all these things that we'd never thought about, those markets open for us. So I think we would have stayed quite narrowly focused on medical and health change and health improvement, without sort of looking at the wider customer demographic.
Well, I think it's incredible what you're doing, and really putting a spotlight on food and how food is such an important medicine, if you will. And so I think it's incredible. I've really enjoyed this chat with you. Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you, Melissa.